Hi, I'm Miss Outerkirk, and I'm going to be walking you through the new Pearson Realize online textbook. As we go through this, I want you to notice how I'm doing the assignments, how I'm going through the lessons, and then that way you will know what is expected of you as your teacher provides your assignments. So this is lesson 1.1 in geometry. The lessons usually start out with the explore and reason. Your teacher might delete some sections of the lesson or simplify it or even add a few things. So every lesson doesn't have all these components, but potentially it could have all these components. So first, explore and reason. It says a teacher labels 2 points on a number line. So if there's a statement or a question or some kind of story, make sure you look at the visuals to determine, okay, there's the 2 points. I've got them. Part A, what are some methods for finding the distance between those 2 points? So I think some of you might think, oh, you could count, leapfrog count, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So you would go here and type in your answer. Okay, that's one option. And then you might say, how else did I do this? And hopefully you remember from earlier grades that you could subtract the 2 points and then find their absolute values. So like -3 minus 5, take that absolute value, or 5 minus a -3 and take that absolute value. So, and you might want to write incomplete sentences, but for the video's sake, I'm just giving the short abbreviated version. So you could leapfrog count or take the absolute value. And then it says, construct arguments. Which method of finding the distance is the best? So that is going to be your opinion and why. So there could be multiple correct answers. Okay, so that's the first, explore and reason. And you would write your argument there. At the bottom of some of the pages, it will have a habits of mind, and it will give you a generalization. This online component, if you are logged in, actually keeps track of your notes for you. So I could say, remember to always take the absolute value when finding distance, because distance won't be negative. So I need to remember that as myself. And then which strategy could you apply to find the distance between any 2 numbers on a number line? This is just more of a note to myself, but I could also add that question. And these notebook questions or statements, whatever you type in, will be saved. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to go to the next page. All right, then you'll start having some conceptual understanding. So here, especially at the beginning of the textbook, you might have lots of definitions and explanations. So this is undefined terms. Undefined terms are terms whose meaning are accepted without formal definitions. For example, description, there's a point. You can't actually see a point. There's no definition or visual, but we're going to describe it as a location that has no size. This is how we write it in the diagram. And this is the notation you would say, like point P. A line, an infinite number of points on a straight path that extends in 2 opposite directions. Notice there are arrows on both ends. You can write it out or name it, saying line L using that cursive letter, or line AB using 2 points on the line. So notice, because I won't always be here, you would need to read the description, look at the visual, and try to determine why the notation is what it is. A plane. A plane is an infinite number of points of the lines on a flat surface. This is a 2-dimensional object. So there are 3 points, X, Y, and Z, and then there's this just different number. So the 3 points, and then this capital letter. You could call it plane M. Notice M is not one of the points. Or plane XYZ, where these 3 letters are the 3 points. Okay, so, and I'm hoping you know some of these, and oftentimes in a geometry lesson, you will know some of the information and you won't know all the information. So you might have known what a point, a line, and a plane are, but you might not have known exactly how to write the notation. So still some conceptual understanding, the big picture. So defining the terms. So a segment is basically a part of a line. So it has 2 endpoints, and you name it as a segment. Notice there's no arrows on the ends of these. A ray is part of a line that it consists of 1 endpoint, there it is, and it goes in only one direction. And you name it MN. Notice where M is the endpoint right there. and the arrow goes in the direction of N. Opposite rays, they look exactly like a line. So you cannot tell the difference. So if you're ever told or asked about opposite rays, visualize a line. So opposite rays, T goes towards S, endpoint T going towards S, or endpoint T going towards U. Both of those are how you name it. And then the angle. Most people at this point in their math career, they know what an angle is, but the one thing that people get wrong is how to name it. So you can name an angle multiple different ways. You could say angle Q, that's the vertex, and you can only name it angle Q if this is the only other angle involved. If there are multiple angles, especially coming off Q, you would have to be more specific, like angle PQR, PQR. So if there's another angle coming over here, you would definitely know that that's not the angle we're talking about because we're using these 3 points. Okay, and then you can use angle 2. That's how to name angles. Then we're going to start with examples. So once you get the concepts and all the foundational information, then you're going to have some examples. The examples are amazing with this interactive textbook because everything is written out for you. So it says, how can you find the length CD? Some of you might already know how to do that since I just talked about it. But you hit the solution button and it tells you step-by-step instructions. Okay, if there's more than one circle up here, you're going to hit the next circle and you're going to try it. Refer to the figure shown. How can we find the length of C? Now let's just pretend I'm not in the mood, I'm grouchy, and I just want to write some stupid answer. I think that's how long the segment is. So I'm going to check my answer. Obviously it's wrong. And then I'm like, oh, I hope my teacher doesn't see that. And I try to go back and delete it, and you can't. So any of the try-its, if you write something inappropriate or incorrect, I will see your answer. So please be aware of that. You can't change it once it's written. Okay. Now, of course, if you get it wrong, it's okay. It's not going to penalize you. It just helps me know whether you're on the right track or not. So please put effort into the try-its. Okay. And it will often ask you at the top, essential questions. How are the properties of segments and angles used to determine their measures? So basically, here's a segment that we're trying to find, AC. You have to be able to answer how you would find the measurement of AC. And hopefully you can. And remember, you always can check those answers. Postulate 1. Not every lesson has postulates, but these are rules to help you understand the concepts that we're going over. Every point on a line can be paired with a unique real number. So in this case, they use a ruler, hence the ruler postulate. So coordinate X is at 3 and coordinate Y is at 7. So those are coordinates. And to find the distance, you are going to take, and again, we talked about absolute value, 7 minus 3, the absolute value is 4, or 3 minus 7, the absolute value of that is also 4. So be aware of that. And notice there's no notation at the top of this. There's no line. There's no segment. So that means they're finding the actual measure. And we'll talk about that more later. Okay, conceptual understanding, example number 2. So again, this is an example. So you can look at it, say, I think I figured it out, and then check your solution, and it tells you exactly. There are also helpful study tips, which is amazing. Remember to look at those, especially if you're struggling. And then I'm going to go to the try it. Refer to the figure shown. What is JK? They're looking for the length, J to K. Now, if I were to do this, I would want the absolute value, 5 minus 12. Now, when I write this or type this in, you could type it in any way so that I understand. If you want to use the lines, if you can find them on your keyboard, great. Otherwise, just type in absolute value. This, and you would put the equal sign, and then you would write your answer. Let's just say I did this wrong. Again, I'm going to say it was 10. I checked my answer, and I'm like, I was off. It's okay, because you're telling me here that you actually understand the idea. You might have just added wrong or subtracted wrong or whatever. So make sure to put some kind of like work so I can check it, and your teachers can check it. Okay, and again, same thing, check your answer, explain what you're doing, and there is a calculator often here to help. Postulate 2, segment addition, same idea. And this is what's amazing. It tells you the postulate or the rule. It tells you that if A and B or C are on the same line, which means collinear, then when you add A plus B, or AB, sorry, and BC together, you should get the whole thing, AC. Now, if I adjust this, I can still see the total is 10, but I'm just changing where B is located. You can also manipulate these, which is amazing. I love this program. Let's say, okay, AC is 11.42. If I move B, it still stays 11.42. So feel free to manipulate these. These are very helpful visuals, and they come in more handy later on as well. Okay, and they have different, depending on the problem, they have different tools at the bottom. Okay, example 3. Again, it's an example, so it will give you the picture, it will give you the solution, and in this one, there's multiple steps. So step 2, and then you can start over and be like, okay, how was that? How did that happen again? And I mentioned this, but collinear means they're on the same line. This one is a little bit more advanced because it's going to have some algebra involved. Okay, common errors again, I'm going to look at those. Now, I'm going through this very quickly. You are going to want to do this again on your own, but this is the first time you've seen these, so I wanted to make sure to go through it. So here's a try it, collinear. If JL, so J to L is 25, what is N? Now, I just know from the earlier problems that I need to add these two segments together. So I'm going to say 3N plus 5N minus 7, and the problem actually told us the total, which is 25. That's what I'm going to set up, and then I can solve it. So I can push return and keep solving. So you can combine like terms, bring down everything else, equals 25. And you can continue from there. I don't want to go all the way. So this one is a little bit more advanced. Check your answers. Oh, N is 4. I didn't get that far, so of course I didn't finish it. And then it asks you for additional questions. Constructed arguments. Again, you can add some things in your notebook. This notebook I will check periodically to see how you're doing if you have questions or concerns. And it is something I have access to. Okay. And this lesson, actually, we're doing every single part of it, so not every lesson will be this long. Protractor postulate. This is very similar to the ruler postulate. It says given the ray BA, so from B to A, and a point C not on that ray, a unique real number from 0 to 180, so 0 to 180, can be assigned to BC. 0 is assigned to BA, this is the 0 degrees, and 180 is assigned to BD. Okay, so if you look carefully, I am reading starting at 0, going upward, counting upward, and I'm hoping you can tell how many degrees that is. Now, if I was going from this angle right here, this larger obtuse angle, you would start from 0 still, so you would read the inside numbers. So I'm going to read inside numbers, and so this angle right here is 120 degrees, but this angle right here is 60 degrees. Always make sure you're starting from the 0, and so that's why the protractor has the numbers going both ways. So depending on where you're starting, you can make sure you start from the 0 on the outside, or if you're starting over here, make sure you start from the 0 and read on the inside. And it gives you some examples, some study tips. Remember to measure things, the solution, and I'm hoping you're getting the idea, and always double check that you get the absolute value, just like on a distance of a ruler. So this one actually, let's stop. BEC. BEC. It isn't starting at 0. So this is where you're going to have the absolute value of the two coordinates. So this one looks like it is, they say 47. See, and because we can't see every detail, I might have thought, maybe 46. But as long as you're showing work, it would be okay. And then this one, because I'm going upward, counting upward, looks like 105. And I look down here, oh, yep, 105. And they subtracted the difference. And then you would try it here. AEC, AEC, because I'm going to have you actually do this one, I am not going to give you that measurement or how to do it. And then same with BED. Again, these don't start at 0, so if you get stuck, you can always go back to that original example. All right, angle addition postulate, again, it's the same idea as the ruler, where you can manipulate a segment. So if you make ABD, this angle, larger, basically in blue, the 101 doesn't change, but the interior measurements of the angles do change, but still add up to the total. So feel free to manipulate that. Okay, another example, this is more of an application, and it even tells you application right there. Oops, up at the top. There's some solutions. Here's a try it of your application. More calculator just in case you need it, and feel free, always check your answers. Make sure to check your answers. And then it has concepts, congruent segments and congruent angles. Here are the concepts, and it even gives you the notation. See these little tick marks? Or these 2 tick marks, it means that these 2 are congruent. Congruent essentially means exactly the same length or the same size. So these 2 are congruent, these 2 are congruent, and these 2 angles are congruent because they have arc marks. So look for those arc marks to help you find answers to problems. Congruent angles. So it tells you right here, if you're not paying attention, you will miss it. These 2 are congruent. So if this is 32, you can right away label this as 32 if you wanted to. Okay, and it says angle XWZ, so this total angle is 127. And if you know this is 32 and this angle is 32, I am hoping you can figure out a way to find this missing angle right there. Okay, it gives you the solution and study tips. And it keeps going. Now these, it looks very scary, but again, these are tick marks. So whatever this length is, that length is the same. This is a 1 tick mark. So these also are the same as the other 1 tick mark. So that's 8 and that's 8. These are both 2. And you're going to have to use those tick marks to really visualize and understand what things are congruent and what are not. And you're going to try it. Notice I am going quicker, because this is going to be more on your own. Okay, let's go to the next one. And example 6. Let's just say I'm at this point in the lesson, I feel very, very confident, and I am ready to move on. So you would just kind of skim through these. Okay, the ruler postulate, this is what it means in words. This is what it means in a visual. Here's the symbols. Protractor postulate in words is explained. This is how you see it on a visual, and this is what the actual answers would be, or a symbol. Okay, so again, it's just reiterating, and it's giving a summary of what we just learned in the lesson. Okay, now here is the tricky part. Not every time you will get this, but if there is a do you understand question or do you know how to do, make sure to answer those. Okay, so essential questions. How are the properties of segments and angles used to determine their measure? So I'm hoping by the time you get to this part of the lesson, you will be able to explain, and it doesn't have to be a long book or a paragraph, just a few sentences of how you would answer that essential question. And if you can do that, that's amazing. You can check your answer when you're done to double check that you're doing it correctly. Okay. And then error analysis. These are really helpful, especially for the state tests, to figure out what is wrong. So you would explain what's wrong and then check that answer. And then vocabulary, just making sure you understand the key terms or vocab. And then you need to make sense of a certain problem. Again, these are very important questions because this is the big picture. Do you understand this actual lesson? And here's the do you know how? And so this is more, instead of the concepts like do you know or do you understand, these are do you know how, where you actually are doing. So you would actually find the length. And again, you check your answers to double check that you actually do understand and you do know how. So there's multiple questions. And then practice problem. So you will be given an assignment. Sometimes the assignment will literally be the lesson, walking through the try-its, walking through all those examples. And so that could be potentially your total lesson. If there are additional lessons, you will be given additional assignments, you'll be given that assignment through your assignments, and we can help you learn how to do that in a future time. I hope this helped understand what you're supposed to do as you're going through each lesson.